to answer your question, I'm okay with getting some stinky old thing and fixing it.
He's like, I'm okay with it. So what'd you think of the night? I know you gave your opinions about it. So do you ever see yourself maybe someday doing an air-cooled build or not even like just air-cooled, maybe just vintage build. Let's just like even broader. Like,
so I'm a little torn on this because like Obsessed Garage as a channel, like a YouTube channel, and is really just it's just a glimpse into my life. Some people would probably say I'm lying, but I've literally not done one single video with the intent of I'm doing it to make a video. I made a video of something that I was doing.
Yeah.
Now, I've been fortunate in that there have been some justification to make certain videos, like I've been able to sell a product, or I've been able to buy a car that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to justify buying because of the channel, but I would have done that anyway.
Yeah.
Take X amount of money and Y thing I'm going to buy. If I have X, I'm going to get Y.
Exactly.
It was going to happen anyway.
Exactly.
And so the one thing I'm torn about on an air-cooled Porsche is I don't really want one. But I know it would be really fun to obsess about, and I knew it would be really fun to make videos about. I know it would be really fun to go from start to finish and do it in my style, at my, and I would do what I could do, but I would also be uncompromised. I'd ship the darn thing all over the country to find the guy who, guy who makes the best diff, the guy who paints the best, who paints the best, and maybe not the best, but really excellent, really good, and
to your specifications.
And I'd end up with a really, really nice car that I probably wouldn't want long term, but it would be something that I know I would really enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
The thing I'm tossing around in my brain is, would I only be doing that for the content?
Yeah.
And then would people know that?
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure. So this progression of me sitting in Brandon's car, I didn't want to drive it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ride in it. And I didn't want the pressure of driving it anyway. You can't just replace that car.
Yeah.
I could buy another Focus ST if I needed to, but I'm not going to just go buy another car of that. Not to say I was going to wreck it, but who knows?
Oh yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
So I didn't want the pressure of that, and but sitting in it, it is something that I would certainly, I know I would enjoy that process. I'm attempting to decide, and I'm probably putting too much weight on this because I'm telling everybody to relax, but I'm attempting to decide, is it something I really, really want to do?
Yeah.
And I think it is, but I think it will be, I'm going to eventually build my garage at my house, and then I would have it as an ongoing project in my garage that would take several years to work through.
That'd be a fun exercise, though, right?
Like I'd get a rotisserie and just gut the thing.
I could see you enjoying that, like breaking it down and basically essentially making it new again for you. And like an air-cooled car or any vintage car, if you decided to do that too, it could warrant that, right? Because it's old enough to do that, where you would do the rotation, the rotisserie on it, to do all those things, to say, well, it makes sense. The car's got a lot of miles on it. Like, let's rebuild the whole motor. Let's repaint it. Let's do all these things. I think what I know from you, about you, you would really enjoy that process. Yeah.
Wouldn't you say I'm probably going to be better served? I keep thinking do like an 80 SC or something. I'm probably going to be better suited doing something in the 90s, aren't I? With having power steering, air conditioning.
As close as you can get it.
Dude, we live in Florida.
Like AC.
Like I think as old as you want to go is a 964.
Yeah.
From what I know about you, I don't think you want to go.
964s are 90, 91.
Yeah, 90, 91, 92, 93.
Yeah.
So I would stick it because it's just enough vintage, but it has modern amenities like you discussed. You said like you like creature comforts. That you can put a nice AC unit in it where you're not going to sweat your tail off. It's going to give you linear power that you described earlier, and all these things, and it's going to be yours at the end of the day. And it'll still have those creature comforts that power windows and locks and all that stuff. It's not going to be super wonky, and it's not going to be too rickety, and it's going to it has enough crash safety in it where you're not going to get killed in it. Essentially,
then I'd retrofit a modern chassis if I could. Modern brakes.
Oh yeah,
I would do state of the art brakes and state of the art suspension.
Yeah, and that's all out there. You can do all of that.
Yeah, and have a really great engine built.
Yeah,
and then keep simple. I'm a big simple interior guy. Like, I don't like navigation. I like a killer audio system, but I don't need like all kinds of fluff.
Yeah.
I want it to be simple, comfortable.
That's your car, man.
Yeah. So I probably will do one at some point, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to try to do it as right as possible. But I would want to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like I would gut the car, I would break it down, I would probably strip it and sand it, and then I'd probably send it out to have body and paint done. And
it
then,
would be perfect.
Yeah, and then I just
and then I could never bring mine around yours ever, because I'd just be like, all right. And I would just use the moniker that I've been using. I'm like, it's a driver. Mine's a driver. It's beat up. It's got paint chips. It's a driver, bro. Like, I drive it.
And then I'd sell it.
Yep.
And then who knows? Maybe I'd get into it and do it again. But see, that's the cool thing about this. Like, this has been the big journey for me, is that I don't have life all figured out when I thought I did. And that's the fun. That's the magic. And so if I do head down that path, let's say I got halfway through and I said, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I'll just punt.
Exactly.
Just punt and
move on.
Yeah, wait for a new possession. Wait for the next
Taking
thing.
the plunge is the big thing, right? Like, and seeing, like, and like you talked about earlier, you did the track thing. You're like, this wasn't for me. You never know. You may uncover a whole nother side of passion that you may do that, and you're like, I really love this process. And you're like, you know what? All my focus is going on this now. Like, I want to rebuild vintage cars to the break them all the way down and build them all the way back up.
Yeah, who knows?
So that's singer.
Yeah. So that's something that I'm interested in. The problem with that pursuit is that we're running out of cars.
Yeah,
that is
good
true.
point.
Quickly.
Yeah,
day by day.
Yeah, every day it goes by. Essentially, somebody's snatching them up. One place is building them for one reason. People are storing them away, and there is a limited supply on that. That is a very, very good point. So,
and it'll be interesting to see also what happens with these cars and with pricing. I mean, pricing has gotten a little insane, but who knows? Maybe because there are becoming less of them, and they're getting crashed and getting chopped and getting so there are very few unmolested ones, and then the ones that were molested, could you revert if you wanted to revert?
Yeah.
And so maybe the pricing will stay in the six figures and above on these cars that were once in the teens.
Yeah, right.
That's
so nuts to think about that, right? If you had a time machine, right?
But I mean, it is supply and demand.
Yeah,
it is a
really
simple free market supply demand curve that we just talked about. They aren't making any more of them, and so they're disappearing. And as they disappear,
exactly, the demand goes up and the prices go up, right?
So then, so as I'm thinking about something 964, 993, something like that, building something air cooled. And then I start thinking, well, why don't I just buy a darn, a GT Touring, 2018,
and
call it a
I
day.
saw the one you drove when you were on the Smokies, and you loved that one, right? The Miami Blue one?
Yeah, I'd love it. Then I start to think of the redundancy of it, if it's the same darn car. And that's where going back to something older, it's a very different car than what I've got.
Yeah.
And what I've got is what I want.
Yeah.
And so I don't want
to repeat it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but
they share so much. It would be one of those things where, like, this doesn't make sense.
Right. Unless you're just balling super hard.
Yeah, right. You're just like, I just want it all.
I'm taking the one without the wing today.
Yeah. I'm going to have a Carrera S because I like the way that sounds, and then I'm going to have a Carrera T because that one's a little more raw, and then I'm going to have a GT4 and a GT3 and a GT3 RS and a Touring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just pick one depending on the day. I could be down with that if I had somebody to wash them.
Yeah, right.
They were washing it to my standard.
I was gonna say, if you could train somebody to do it just the way you do it, and then you test them and they pass the test, then you can let go and you can be like, okay, I found my guy.
There you go, certified.
That's been the biggest shift for me as a human personally. Is that now I have this business, Obsessed Garage. Despite the fact that it's a YouTube channel, I'm kind of jerking around in my garage. It's become a business.
No, it's huge, man.
And I used to think I could do everything better than everybody. I can't. I can't do it now. And so now I spend a lot of my time focused on training somebody else to be good at a certain task.
Yeah.
And so I'm confident I could find some people that would do way better than I would at washing my own cars. So I started to think about it. I'm like, well, it'd be cool that, like, if I'm going to do a whole detailing series, I'll polish the hood, and then voila, the car's done.
I'll
walk
movie
away.
magic. Nice. The car is done.
Yeah. And I'll show you, here's all the stuff stuff because when I'm shooting a video series of me doing that, I'm only shooting certain parts of it, and then I got to turn the camera off and do the work.
Yeah, that's true.
Later,
yeah.
So
you're still doing it.
This is one of my secrets. One of my goals to get to the point where I just polish the hood and walk away.
There you go. There you hear it first, guys. He's taking internships. You got to pass first before any type of dollars start rolling.
But it's been fun to find people that are passionate about a certain role in a business, and then really focus on them and giving them the ability to giving them a leash. So that's been a big shift through this whole learning process, through this whole self-discovery and humbling that happened to me. It's really changed my life. And the thing that I have to accredit it to is, I have a coach. I don't know if you've ever heard me talking about this, but I literally, my first employee was a coach.
Yeah.
They don't work for me, but I pay them, they consult. And that's been massive. So I'm a huge advocate of, if you're in any kind of business, to find somebody that can coach you. It's because you have so many blind spots.
Absolutely. You get that third party perspective of well, what are you guys doing on this front? And you're like, I haven't even thought about that. And they're like, why haven't you?
What do you mean?
Well, you need to develop a plan to start working on that then.
Yeah, that's been really, really powerful. I probably need a car coach, that coaches me on what car to buy, so I won't make so many mistakes I have.
Then you have the Jerry Seinfeld manager of your cars. You're like, no, we don't want this car. This isn't our car.
Yeah, this is a bad idea. Don't do it.
Talk you off the ledge. You're like, I know it looks sexy right now, but you do not want this car. And you're like, okay.
Are you sure I don't?
Yeah, because I spent some time. I was actually just editing a video. I was at Jay Leno's garage, and we were doing.
I saw that.
I was editing the behind the scenes where Chris, who maintains the cars there and maintains the collection, he's just kind of giving us a tour from his perspective, and you just see the amount of work that goes into maintaining a massive collection like that.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, there's a full.
I think about that all the time when I see Jay too, like all the behind the scenes guys. I was like, man, he has an army of guys working on these things.
Yeah, it's a big job and a big project, and and then each one is the interesting thing with him is that each car has like a spot. And then he's done all the obsession around it, which is cool.
That is really cool.
The memorabilia and stuff,
Yeah, that's super cool.
That's really, really neat to see, another fellow obsessed person.
I was just about to say the same thing. I was like, it's nice to see it on all different levels, right? Yep. You don't always have to have the monetary means to be obsessed about something, right? Like, I've seen crazy Matchbox collections, and just because people love cars and they're like, look, I don't have the dollars to go buy a bunch of Porsches, but I've got every Porsche Matchbox that's ever existed, and whatever. And it's just cool to see that, where people can channel that passion into something, whatever they want to do, and it's possible at any level.
That's what's been cool for me in the Porsche community, out of any car community, and I'm familiar and have been not involved, but I know any car guy knows other car guys. Like there's the Ferrari guys and the McLaren guys and of course the Porsche guys, and in general I found that the Porsche guys are less about money and more about the passion for it, and they're all walks of life. Now I spend a lot of time with the upper echelon of Porsche money, because I always have a new one, and so I'm hanging out a lot with the guys that have the newest cars, and those guys are generally the most affluent. But the great thing about these people is that you'd never know it if you didn't see their $200,000 car. You'd never know.
Exactly.
There's a certain personality, a certain type, I think, that's a Porsche guy.
I agree.
In general,
I agree with that, and you bring up a very good point that we can touch on for a little bit, because it goes back to the passion and the enthusiasm for the car, right? Like, they're just in a position in life, whatever decisions they decided to make, business wise, whatever, where monetarily they can afford that car, but it doesn't designate who they are as a person, right? Just because of that car is there, it's not saying this is who I am, and stay away from me. They're the people that are just like, hey, I have the means, and I really want this, so I'm going to do it.
And there's something interesting about the fact that, a 911 is deeply flawed, right? It's all wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everything about it is wrong, and yet that makes it so right.
Yes.
And makes it, and it's inferior in many ways in comparison to other, other cars. And so there's almost like that broken wing type, that flaw that the cars have that I think maybe the people share.
I agree.
And that I think a lot of times tends to humble us all to some extent. And I think it's changed. The culture's changed a little bit because the cars have become really popular. The paint to sample cars and the whole buzz around them. And we end up with a lot of people that are short time, almost renters of a space in a 911, or especially a GT car.
Exactly.
But in general, I find that these cars end up in a place or with ownership of people that are really passionate about it.
Exactly.
It does seem that way.
Even if you have to end up with a GT car secondhand or something like you said, there's that buyer who's aspiring to own that car. Even if a broker ended up buying that car and they got the allocation or whatever ended up happening originally with that car will find its home with the person who's just like, this is my baby.
Yeah, and so I think what we're talking about is that there's a culture around being a Porsche enthusiast. There's a certain I mean, there's a lot of different walks of life, but there's a certain something about the culture around it. Whether it's vintage or it's air cooled or it's current, current GT cars. But I think that any culture, any subculture in the Porsche community I've been around I just get a different vibe than other types of cars. Other types of
exactly.
people.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of it, and this is just my personal opinion, and just from the circles we've traveled in and the events we've been to and things like that, and I don't think I can put my thumb on the exact reason, but one of the contributing factors I think to that is like, I think it's just the buyer's involvement in the sense of like everything that Porsche does, meaning like from race time and paying attention and that they're winning races, so it makes them relevant, and it makes the cars relevant, and they want to participate and they want to mingle with other people that share that same passion, and they want to go on drives, they want to go to the Smoky Mountains and drive their cars and spend time with other Porsche people and do all these things, and I think not that other groups of cars don't do that, but maybe just not as, I guess, often,
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on what it is about.
Yeah, but there's something there, right? Like maybe it's just, I don't know. It's just the involvement.
I would almost say it's almost back to what you said earlier. They're giving a reason for you that you can be obsessed about that brand, and you can go as deep as you want to in it.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. Their marketing second to none. I mean, they're good at that.
They are very good at
that.
But
as far as that, a Porsche person, I mean, it's just a friendly, welcoming. Doesn't matter who you are.
So, what do you think? Does that make us sheep?
Maybe, I don't know. It could be, but or maybe you had the Kool-Aid and you realize what it is. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about with your progression in Porsche, and when you from your car lines and when you got into a Porsche, did you have that epiphany where you sat in a Porsche and you drove it and you're like, I get it, like I get why people like Porsches?
The first Porsche I sat in and drove was the one I bought, like that day.
There you go.
And but it was